this might have just become my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. Usually I would be posting my monthly reading wrap-up right about around this time for the previous month, so I would be posting May's right now. However, if you followed me or you've looked at my channel, then you might notice I haven't posted a reading wrap-up for the last 3 months. So the last one I posted was for February, and then March, April, and May all went and passed with no reading update video from me, which is around the time that I stopped posting my reading updates last year as well. So there's something about the month of April that just really puts me into a reading slump. But this year I was determined to get out of it quickly, and I have a few tips and tricks for getting out of reading slumps, which I will be sharing with you very soon, so stay tuned for that. But it felt a little weird to be posting a video when I was only reading about 1 book a month, so I was just kind of waiting until I had enough to talk about. And I think I finally do now. So we're going to start with March, and then we're going to move to April, and then May, and I'm going to tell you about all the books I've been reading recently. When I'm in danger of a reading slump, the first thing to go is my attention span, and reading books physically just becomes very hard for me. So most of the books that I've been reading recently have been audiobooks. So I don't own a few of them because I just borrow them off of Libby, but I have a couple. In my last reading update video in February, I had just read Done and Dusted by Lyla Sage. So in the month of March, I was continuing on with that series, and I read Swift and Saddled by Lyla Sage as well, which is book number 2 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. This one follows Emmy's older brother, Wes, who is the middle child of the Ryder siblings, and Ada, who is a city girl interior designer that has been hired by Wes to renovate a bed and breakfast on their property that he is going to run. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really cute. I really liked Wes when he was introduced in Done and Dusted, and he's definitely one of those characters that I wanted to know more about. So I was really happy that the second book was about him. He has this cute dog, Waylon, that follows him around everywhere, which was also very cute. Ada was a character who kind of has like a bad history and who's recently divorced. She failed out of an interior design program and didn't really have a good past with relationships. So it was super cute to see her and Wes kind of get together, and he's such a soft boy and he was so understanding and super supportive of her and all of her boundaries. And they had just a really like organic love story that felt very real. So I really enjoyed that one. I ended up rating this one 4 stars. I liked it better than Done and Dusted, but it just wasn't quite a 5-star read for me. But these are really like short and easy books to read. I'm pretty sure I read this one entirely in 2 days. So that was a cowboy romance. So on the blanket, it is going to be getting this tan kind of color. I haven't updated this blanket yet, so I'm gonna add footage in when I actually do update it, but this was it after the month of February, and then I have to still add in March, April, and May. So I'll show you what it looks like after I finish adding all of those in, but for now, I'll just show you the colors. So this was a cowboy romance, so it will be getting this tan color right here. And that was the only book that I ended up reading in the month of March. This was the beginnings of my reading slump, and I could kind of feel it coming, and I needed to get past it quickly. So super cute book, cowboy romance, small town boy, big city girl. He's kind of technically her boss. And if you read Done and Dusted, this is the second book in that series. These are kind of interconnected standalones. I don't necessarily feel like you had to read Done and Dusted before reading this one, but it would have enhanced your reading experience if you had, because there's a lot of the same like family characters, and all the characters from the previous book come back into this one. That was it for the month of March, just the one book. So let's move on to April. So April was another month where I really only read 1 book, and it happened to be the next book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. So in April, I read Lost and Lassoed by Lyla Sage, of course. And this book follows the 3rd Ryder sibling. So this is Emmy and Wes's older brother, Gus. And it also follows Emmy's best friend, Teddy. I had really high hopes for this one because I heard a lot of people say that this was their favorite book out of the entire series. And it had a lot of tropes that I generally really like the whole single dad nanny aspect, the forced proximity, the kind of rivals to lovers, best friend's brother. This one was definitely full of a lot of tropes. And it honestly, for some reason, didn't really hit as well as I wanted to or hoped it would. I don't know if it's because I just decided to read 3 of these books back to back to back, and maybe I should have spaced them out more. And it definitely got better towards the end. There was a point about 3/4 through the book where I kind of couldn't put it down after that, but to get to that point kind of took a long time, and I took a lot of breaks in between. This was another audiobook listen for me. I think I had to renew my loan like 3 or 4 times just to get through it. So Teddy is Emmy's best friend from Done and Dusted, and she recently lost her job and kind of doesn't know what she's going to do in life anymore. Gus has I believe a 6-year-old daughter named Riley, who is staying with him for the entire summer, and he is juggling being a father and taking care of the Rebel Blue Ranch, and he's kind of just trying to juggle all of that and is not doing a very good job of it. So he needs to hire some help for the summer with Riley, and he ends up hiring Teddy. So Teddy becomes the nanny for Riley so that Gus can focus on the ranch and not have to worry about his daughter during the day. The only problem is that Gus and Teddy really do not like each other. They cannot stand each other. They have always kind of just been throwing insults at each other every time that they see each other. So they are suddenly forced to be living under the same roof for about 5 days a week, and their hate starts to kind of grow into something a little bit more. This wasn't a bad book, but there was just certain aspects that either felt like they dragged on for too long or were just a little bit too much of the focus. Gus was supposed to be this like broody, grumpy man, and it just kind of felt like he was too broody and too grumpy, to the point where like I kind of wasn't sure that they would ever get past hating each other and into the loving of each other, and it just felt like some of that went on for way too long. But by the time they actually got to the point where they were okay with each other and started to date, that's where the book actually got good for me. I always like seeing all the other characters in the books that are interconnected standalones, so this is kind of like Swift and Saddled, where you don't necessarily have to read Done and Dusted and Swift and Saddled before this one, but it'll just make it better if you do. I would say especially Done and Dusted before this one, because this one had a lot of appearances from Emmy and Luke, who are the main characters in Done and Dusted. There wasn't as much Wes and Ada in this story, which I kind of wasn't a fan of because they were my favorite couple so far. So to not really see them and see a lot of like Emmy and Luke, I don't know, wasn't the best. But it was a good book overall. I think it was a solid book for Gus and Teddy, and I gave this one 3 stars. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed reading it. It was just kind of didn't hit as well as I hoped it would. And it was when I was like going into a reading slump, so there wasn't that like excitement to read it, which isn't the fault of the book at all. So that was another cowboy romance, so it will be another tan stripe on the blanket. And that was the only book I read in April. Let's move on to May. May is kind of where I started to get my stride back, and I was finally seeing the end of my reading slump, and I kind of feel like it is all thanks to this next book. I hadn't really heard anything about this book until the ARC showed up in the mail, and then I was very intrigued. It still took me like a couple weeks to actually read it, and once again I did listen to the audiobook for this, but I fully give this book all of the credit to getting me out of my reading slump this year, and that book is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. As I said, I was lucky enough to get an ARC sent to me by Red Tower and Entangled Publishing, so thank you so much for that. But I honestly had no idea what this book was about, even going into it. I kind of read the back, but I really didn't read much about it, and I was trying to stay away from all of people's reviews. But as it came out, I started to see everyone raving about it, and I kind of knew I had to read it. So I listened to the audiobook for this one too, but I kind of jumped back and forth between the audio and reading the book. And I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one a pretty solid 5 stars. Devney Perry is a romance author. She did the Indigo Ridge series, so this is her first debut fantasy. And I don't know what it is, but I think there's just something about when a romance author writes a fantasy book, the romantasy of it all, like it's so much better than anything else. Like when Rebecca Yarros wrote Fourth Wing, that's kind of what this gave me the vibes of. Not necessarily like that the stories are similar, but just that it gave me those same emotions that I felt while reading Fourth Wing that I hadn't really felt since then, so that was a very welcomed feeling. I don't really want to say much about this book because it is honestly better if you go into it not really knowing what it's about. But basically there's this magical world where instead of having like fae and more of like that kind of magic system, there is these monsters that are kind of attacking this land, and everyone's kind of getting ready for the migration of these monsters that are going to kind of wreak havoc on their entire world. Odessa is the daughter of a king, so she's a princess. She gets married off to the prince of another kingdom and is forced to move to that kingdom with him. This kingdom has kind of already become overrun by monsters, and she's navigating this new life of not necessarily just sitting back and being a princess, but like fighting and becoming one of the people of this new place. That's all I'm gonna say. It was so good. It genuinely like gripped my attention very quickly and did not let go. The narrator did such a good job, and I think that was part of the reason why I loved it so much, but the story on its own is still so good. I think Devney Perry did a really good job of the world building, and she made all of the monsters in the world feel so real, and she actually ended up putting out like drawings of each of the monsters on her Instagram, which was super cool because it kind of gave a face to all of the things you were reading. I really loved this one. I think if you haven't read it, you definitely should, especially if you like romantasy or if you liked Fourth Wing. And I believe this is a 3-book series, so it kind of does leave on not necessarily like a cliffhanger, but it's kind of like a shocking ending. So I'm really excited for the next books. I really enjoyed this one. So again, thank you to Red Tower and Entangled Publishing and Devney Perry for sending this to me. This is a solid 5-star read, and you should definitely check it out. This is a fantasy, so it will be getting this light pink color on my blanket that I kind of ran out of, and it was big twist yarn, and now Joann's is closed. So I'm gonna have to see if I can find a similar kind of yarn, at least the color, to kind of keep going. But that was the first book of May, so I really started off on a good note. The next book that I read in the month of May was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I know Ali Hazelwood is a very kind of divisive author. Either you love her books or you hate her books. I generally love Ali Hazelwood's books. I read Deep End in February, I believe. It just didn't really hit as well as Ali Hazelwood's books usually do, and I think I gave it 3 stars. Not in Love came out last summer, and I'm not really quite sure why I didn't read it last summer. I think just because I was going through a massive reading slump. I bought the book and then it just sat on my shelf. And honestly, I heard so many conflicting things about that book through social media and stuff, so I just don't think there was anything that was like pulling me to pick it up until she announced Problematic Summer Romance. And everything about Problematic Summer Romance just sounded like the perfect book for me and one that I knew I was gonna love, especially written by Ali Hazelwood. So I knew I had to go back and read Not in Love. And honestly, I was not in love with this book. I ended up giving this one 2 stars, and honestly, I probably would have DNF'd it if not for Problematic Summer Romance, and I just wanted to kind of get to know the characters first. I know you didn't have to read it for that, but I just wanted to. I really did not jive with this book very well. I don't know what it was. I think this and Deep End were just so spice heavy books, which isn't a bad thing, but it kind of just seemed like she leaned more into the spicy scenes and kind of lost the plot in a lot of it. Like it was just kind of all about the spice and not about the plot at all. Especially this one, like it was very insta-lovey. He kind of like saw her and immediately was like, oh my god, I need her in my life forever. Which isn't a bad thing, but it just kind of doesn't leave room for that like tension and that yearning that she's usually so good at writing about. So I don't know, it just really was not my favorite. I honestly liked the whole subplot about the biotech more than I liked their relationship. A lot of the scenes just felt so like clinically written too, like the spicy scenes. It kind of felt like weird to even read because they were very clinical, and I don't know. If you've read it, you might know what I'm talking about. And I get that like the main character was supposed to be kind of like awkward and kind of emotionally detached, but she almost just came across as being like robotic at times. And it didn't really, even by the end, feel like she cared much for Eli. It felt like Eli was totally into Rue, and Rue just kind of, I don't know, like she just didn't really seem into him much, which isn't great for a romance book, obviously. I really did like all of the scenes of Eli with his friends, so that kind of ended up saving the book for me, which is why I kind of was really excited for Problematic Summer Romance. Also, the way this book was written was so confusing, because it was dual POV, which Ali Hazelwood usually does not do dual POV, but Rue's chapters were written in first person and Eli's chapters were written in third person. So that was super confusing because it just almost made you feel even more detached from the story because you were jumping back and forth between first and third person. I listened to this one on audio as well, and I get that Rue was supposed to be kind of unemotional and whatever, but the narrator was just very like monotone and had no emotion in her voice whatsoever, which fit the character, but it just did not make for a very good audiobook read. So this was 2 stars, which kind of bummed me out because the last 2 Ali Hazelwood books that I've read have been pretty low, when all of her books before that were 5-star reads for me. I was really looking forward to Problematic Summer Romance, but it also kind of worried me since it was kind of a sequel to this. I wasn't sure if it was gonna kind of have the same vibes of this, but I still wanted to give it a chance. This is a contemporary romance, so it will be getting this white color when I eventually do it. And that was the second book I read in May. So the final book that I read in May was Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood, and I was really excited for this book. From the minute that she kind of announced it and said that it was about Maya, who is Eli's younger sister in Not in Love, and Connor, who is Eli's best friend slash boss, also in Not in Love, it immediately kind of grasped my attention. So this one is an age gap romance. Connor is 38 and Maya is 23. It's a little bit of a forbidden romance since she is his best friend's younger sister and he is her older brother's best friend. And it's kind of a sequel to Not in Love, but not really. I don't think you need to read Not in Love before reading this one. It's just kind of more if you want to know the characters and get a better introduction to some of them. This book takes place in Sicily in Italy, and it follows the week of Eli and Rue's wedding. So Connor is obviously Eli's best friend and Maya is his sister, so they both have to come to this wedding. And they're forced to kind of stay in the same villa house on this little island in Italy. They had had a little bit of a falling out a year prior, but we don't really know why yet. So they are both equally not really super excited to see the other. I loved this book. This is like the Ali Hazelwood writing that I loved so much, like in Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically and all of those. This is like the Ali Hazelwood writing I love. There was so much tension, so much yearning, because this is like a forbidden romance, it's an age gap romance, it's forced proximity. It had like all of the perfect tropes. There's some flashback scenes to 3 years prior, which added a lot to the story and kind of took you out of Italy, which I liked a lot. Connor Harkness is an Irish man, so he has an accent. Maya's like this super smart science genius, and she was a super fun character. Their banter was so good. I flew through this book so quickly. I think I read it in about 2 days. It was so good. And this is the Ali Hazelwood writing that I was missing in Deep End and Not in Love. So if you haven't read Not in Love and you want to read Problematic Summer Romance, I would say not to read Not in Love. I mean, it wasn't that bad if you would just put it on like the audiobook in the background, but I don't think you really needed to know much about what happens in that book to read Problematic Summer Romance. This might have just become my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. So definitely give that one a read if you haven't already. I listened to it on audiobook as well, which was kind of fun because the narrator for Connor had an Irish accent, so that was cool. This one was not dual POV, but it was duet narration, so all of Connor's lines were said by a male narrator and all of Maya's were said by a female narrator. So definitely give this one a read if you haven't already. The setting of Italy just made it like so much better, and the characters were super likable. I think I liked Eli and Rue better as background characters than as main characters. And Connor's a hot, rich biotech Irish dude. What's not to like about that? So that was the last book in May. It was also a contemporary romance, so it will also be getting the white yarn. So it was a good month of May. I found a really good fantasy that I liked and a really good romance that I liked. There was just a little dip in the middle, but no harm, no foul. So that is all of the books that I read in the months of March, April, and May. I'm happy to say that I am not in a reading slump anymore, and I will be continuing on with my normal monthly videos now, as long as I have multiple to talk about. I will add in some footage when I update my blanket and show you what it looks like at the end of those 3 months. I know that I said I was going to input some footage of my blanket once I crocheted all of my rows into it, and I did actually crochet these 2 rows for Swift and Saddled and Lost and Lassoed, which are in this fan color. But then I got to Shield of Sparrows, which is this pink fantasy color, and I'm all out of this yarn, and it was discontinued, and it was Big Twist, which was Joanne's brand. which is now closed. So I haven't been able to find a suitable substitute yet, and I didn't want to just put some random yarn on this blanket that I wasn't happy with. So I'm going to try my hardest to keep looking for a good substitute for my fantasy yarn, since I will probably be reading a lot more fantasy books. So until then, I'm just gonna leave it like this, and hopefully by my June reading wrap-up video, which should be coming out early July, I will have the substitute for this yarn and I will show you what the blanket looks like after all of my May rows are crocheted onto it. So for now, this is it after March and April. I just have to do my May rows, which is Fantasy for Shield of Sparrows, and then 2 of this white color, which is Contemporary Romance, which is for Not in Love and Problematic Summer Romance. So hopefully I will have those by my next reading update video. But for now, here is my progress on the blanket. Thank you for watching. As always, leave your recommendations for what I should read in the comments down below. Like this video and subscribe if you are not already to see my future book review videos and keep updated on my blanket. And I might have some more fun videos coming up soon. A video about getting out of a reading slump. I have all my crochet tutorials if you are interested in that kind of stuff. I will have all of my socials linked in the description down below, so make sure you follow along there as well. I post different content there. And thanks for watching. Happy reading!